Because last time when we were here, we had slight issue with the actually seeing you, and there was a bit of problem with the audio. But I must say, probably we are the example of how to overcome the stress and uncertainty, because we are back here. How exciting is that?
Yeah, a very good example of a very mini crisis that people would have on a day-to-day basis. But I think the ideas I've got apply to small crises and big crises. So,
I love it. And I love the fact you said small crisis and big crisis, because to be honest, situations will always appear. There'll be always something happening in the world, in a country, in a city, in a village, in a family. And it's about how do we deal with them.
Yes, sure.
Love that. So, Jason, what actually made you think about such an amazing topic, thriving in a crisis by managing uncertainty? Is it really the lockdown, or is there anything else what actually made you think about that?
Well, no, I've been talking on this subject for a few years now. But the reason I've merged those two things together is the fact that I survived a very severe crisis in my life when I had a brain injury which has a survival rate of 5%. So it was a very, very serious brain injury.
Yeah.
And I was able to manage that crisis. I managed to survive and then managed to thrive by going from being told I'd never walk again to running a marathon. So I might not have ever run a marathon in my life. If it hadn't been for the crisis I had, then it sort of drove me on to do something as best I could. So that was the thriving crisis part. I actually thrived in my crisis. And managing uncertainty is something an area that I researched on and wrote a lot on as part of my PhD. So I've got some sort of track record in thriving in a crisis and managing uncertainty. And it's just coincidence or nice coincidence that the two things merge together very well, because a crisis creates a lot of uncertainty. And so I can talk about my own personal crisis and then how you can manage it using the techniques that I developed in my PhD. So that's the idea why it's structured that way.
That's amazing. And I love that. And you are just showing the perfect example how what happened to you actually can be used to not only inspire you, motivate you, and move you forward in life, but also inspire other people. Because right now what you do, as you told me, you're doing the workshops on this topic and also speaking engagements. And have you been a speaker before this event in your life?
Well, I suppose I was employed as a speaker because I was a university lecturer.
That's good.
As a university lecturer, you have to do a lot of speaking, I suppose, in front of a big audience of students.
Yes.
So that was one area of speaking, but also at the same time, I was doing a lot of research and I often submitted my research to conferences, and then I go along to conferences and present my work there and talking to an audience of my peers. So, more sort of high level people. So yeah, I've got quite a lot of experience of speaking in the past. So it comes naturally to me, I suppose. It's not speaking in front of a big audience on a technical subject is not a challenge for me.
Mm-hmm. Which is wonderful. And then what happened next, I guess you just took the inspiring story of yours about the brain injury and you turned it into inspirational speaking and also doing the workshops, which is really amazing. But Jason, would you mind to share with us a couple of maybe main bullet points or main information? Obviously, I'm not going to ask you to do the entire workshop here, which will be amazing. But could you share a few bullet points which actually would help people to overcome the crisis, to thrive in crisis, and just to improve themselves through the crisis and to manage their uncertainty?
For sure. Yes. Well, my workshop is called, and my speaking is called TikTok Clock. TICTOCCLOC.
That's interesting. Why is that?
Well, there's three parts to it. The tick stands for thrive in crisis.
Mm-hmm.
And that's obviously about my crisis, but it's quite commonly recognized that crisis can be good or bad, depending on which way you look at it. And Winston Churchill is quite widely quoted as saying, never let a good crisis go to waste.
Yes.
So, which implies that sometimes a crisis can be good. It opens up opportunities and maybe pushes you into doing things differently. And there's a concept of post-traumatic growth, which is the opposite. I think a lot of people have heard of PTSD, post-traumatic stress, and that is a very real thing. I mean, a lot of people will suffer PTSD from, well, very extreme events and even minor events in their life, I suppose. But that's the one that's most talked about because it's the one that has the biggest impact and the worst results for people. Whereas, that it's also recognised that on the other hand, the other side of the coin is post-traumatic growth, which is, along the lines of what Winston Churchill was saying, that never let a good crisis go to waste. And you can grow from it. You can learn and you can do things differently. And, it's, well, for me, it was doing a marathon. I'd never done a marathon before and I might not have ever done a marathon, but, I got a lot of growth from my crisis by doing that. And, wanted to take on more physical challenges now to see how far I can push my rehabilitated body to doing things that are better than before.
Which is remarkable. I mean, running marathon is not easy. I never done it before myself. I'll be honest, never done it. Maybe because I was never challenged, which is good. Because I don't think I would survive. But it's quite remarkable what you have done. So what would you say?
Yes. Well, then, sorry, I was talking, that was TIC, as in thrive in crisis. TOC then, TOC, stands for take opportunities consciously.
Mm-hmm.
So in a crisis, it can quite often that people panic and jump from one thing to another, sort of clutching at straws and trying different things. And it generally doesn't turn out to be the best result. I mean, it might come up with some result, but the best result would come from standing back and being consciously aware of the information that's coming to you and then reflecting on it and then doing, taking some action. So well, that's part of my PhD, and the logo I use is perception, reflection, action. It's like a little circle. I mean, those are used a lot, I suppose, for various things, but perception, reflection, action, which comes from not panicking, just standing, what information is coming to you, in whatever way, through your senses or through reading the news or whatever it is. And then reflection, obviously thinking about it. And I'd say it's basically common sense in a way, because it's the way we drive a car. You receive all of your information around you and you think about it, and then you do something, whether it's steering or braking or changing gear or, whatever it is, depending on what you've observed. So that's, why would you drive a car any other way? But the thing is, maybe sometimes that people say they've driven somewhere and not remembered anything about the journey. It's become like autopilot, you just go along and don't really realize what you're doing. And for me, that's indicates that maybe people live their lives like that somehow. They're sort of on autopilot and they drift through their lives or go along managing to survive, but not appreciating what's actually happening. And I think there's an antidote to that, which I'm sure people have heard of, called mindfulness. And mindfulness is getting more mainstream. I mean, a lot more people are talking about mindfulness now, although it came from the Eastern sort of traditions of Buddhism, and but it's basically being aware of what's happening in the moment. And mindfulness practice normally involves observing your breath and being aware of what's happening around you, with your breath. And then, whereas you can practice mindfulness in other ways by actually being aware of everything that's going on around you and reflecting on it. And so being mindful of, and that's the basis of talk in a way, taking it. But then once you've received all the information, then it's taking opportunities consciously. So it's being mindful, and then, as I say, reflecting, and then looking for the opportunities. I mean, I use the word opportunities there because when there's uncertainty, there's also opportunity. Although people would often see risk, when there's uncertainty, they say, "Oh, I don't know what's going to happen. It's really risky."
Yeah.
So, often people want to get rid of the risk. They say, "Oh, I don't want any risk. I don't want any uncertainty or risk. So I better just get rid of it."
Yeah.
But by doing that, you kind of throw away the opportunities as well. If you've removed the uncertainty, you've removed the risks, but you've also, you're ignoring the opportunities, I suppose. And by taking in information and reflecting on it, you might find the opportunities hidden in the crisis. So I just, one of the ways I describe thrive in crisis is finding the nuggets of opportunity hidden in the crisis. So it's being able to take those, or see those nuggets of opportunity and use them to your advantage. So that's why it's talk, basically being aware of what's happening. And I mean, the other thing is I use the word opportunity because people talk about taking risks. Risk is, a bad thing, but people take risks. And but I'd say take opportunities, not risks. But yeah, on that point, actually, one of the things I also say in my speech in my workshop is that that sometimes crises are intentional. People actually create crises, possibly to find opportunities. But an example I would give is that in extreme sports, people put themselves in a crisis situation so they can survive it and maybe grow from it. And I would ask the question whether the people of Britain created the Brexit crisis so they could thrive in it. Maybe Britain's hoping to thrive in the crisis of Brexit. Is it deliberate or not? But that's a question to be, well, the answer will be seen at some stage in the future, whether Britain thrives in Brexit or whether it doesn't. So that's going back to thriving crisis. But again, it's taking the opportunities that are available. So if there are nuggets of opportunity in Brexit, then maybe you'll thrive in it. So that's talk. Sorry, I'm going on a bit about TikTok, but then clock, CLOC, and that stands for contingencies let opportunities commence. So if you've identified the opportunities, you also need to be aware of the risks still. As again, there's uncertainty is opportunities and risk. So contingencies will allow you to cover the risk.
Okay.
In terms of, you think of the worst case scenario, and then you think of ways of reducing that risk. So if it comes along, if the risk happens, then how are you going to get over it and manage it? So contingencies kind of give you the peace of mind, or you feel happy that you've got the risk covered, and then that helps you to relax about the risks. Maybe you don't have to focus on the risks because you've got contingencies, which means that you've got freedom to look for opportunities. So contingencies let opportunities commence. So that's where clock comes in, and but the whole thing, the thriving crisis was tried in a challenging situation, taking opportunities consciously and putting contingencies in place for the worst possible, is all brought together in a design technique from the construction industry, which is called the observational method.
Oh, that's interesting.
And my PhD was on looking at the observational method and taking it from construction and moving it forward into a generic uncertainty management tool. So that's why how I summarize it as tick-tock clock, because that's the basis of the observational method, which is what my PhD is on. So that explains the whole process, I suppose, and the way I see to thrive in a crisis is using the observational method.
I love that. I mean, I'm admiring you how, in a clever way, in a very, I mean, it's like simple, but at the same time, it's so clever how you managed to combine so many aspects of how to thrive through the crisis into just, did you say tick-tock clock? Yeah, I love it. It's so actually easy, so easy. My favorite part actually of all what you said was about opportunities. That was my favorite part. I must tell you that so many people, they forget that whatever situation they're in, it is an opportunity. Yes, it can be a problem. It could be a situation which is not that pleasant, but actually it is always an opportunity if you only choose. That's the trick. Choose to look at that as opportunity.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I just described it as nuggets. Those sort of golden nuggets hidden in the opportunity, in the uncertainty somewhere. It's a matter of finding those nuggets and picking them and saying, right, I'll run with that. That's going to benefit me. So, yeah.
Absolutely. What I just noticed on Facebook, we actually have people. I remember them joining our session last time when we were trying to manage to hear you or to see you, and then we ended up having you on the phone next to the computer to actually having a session. And so thank you so much, those who joined us. And now we see and hear Jason with no issues. But you see, this is actually a perfect example how you can still thrive in a crisis, because it was quite a stressful situation. And I must say, Jason, that I was receiving some feedback. People said, we were thinking you would just stop live and nothing gonna happen, but you just carried on. And I said, well, of course, we have Jason on the line and we managed to get him on the phone, so why not to continue? But that was quite amazing. And I think, this is what you got to do. Just sometimes keep going, keep trying, keep testing, keep measuring what works, what doesn't work, and then just move on. Simple as that. But you see, people have lots of tips, and I'm really, really thankful for all your tips when it comes to how can you thrive through crisis through these various options. But I think it's quite tricky to many people, some of our listeners or those who are watching us maybe on YouTube, because we're on both platforms at the same time. What about uncertainty? How people can manage uncertainty emotionally? It's like easy to say, just manage uncertainty. But do you have any practical tips how people actually manage uncertainty?
Sorry, could you say that again?
Sure, I think there was some noise. You see what happens sometimes live noises. Yes, my question was to you, James. What about how to manage uncertainty emotionally? So technically, we understand how to do it, but what about our emotions? How can we manage uncertainty on an emotional level? Because women, they get to panicking, they might cry, they might get upset, and men, they might close, not to talk anymore because they are really stressed. So what do you think, how people could manage, if you have any tips on how they can manage uncertainty emotionally?
Yes, yes. Well, that's a very good point, and I suppose I've got direct experience of that emotionally from my brain injury that put me in hospital for 2 years and left me after 2 years in hospital with the prediction that I'd never walk again. That's what the doctors told me.
Yeah, I remember.
They said, "You'll never walk again." So emotionally, I could have been shattered by that news, and I just thought at that time, I thought, is there opportunity in this? You know, is he sure? So it's about, I suppose, emotionally, it's about having hope, never losing hope. You know, if you lose hope, then you get very stressed and upset, and you know, it can be devastating. And if I'd just prediction and as accepted I'd never walk again, then I could have lost all hope. You know, I could have thought, well, he's the expert, he knows what he's talking about, and just accepted that prediction. And but when there's uncertainty, in a way, you've always got hope as well. So it's to stay hope. You know, focus on the hope and keep mindful of your hope and your hopes, and you know, don't be defeated by the worst predictions, but stay hopeful. And I mean, I suppose that the very good but worst example of having your hope destroyed and the emotional impact of that was my wife. I mean, you think I went through hell with my accident. Can you imagine what she went through in this case, where she was 3 months pregnant, and on the day, which was the first anniversary of us meeting, so we met the year before, exactly the year before my accident,
Yeah.
or two weeks after the anniversary of, 2 weeks before the anniversary. So on the day of the anniversary, which was 2 weeks after my accident, I was in a coma, and they didn't know what was going to happen to me. And on that day, so remember, Liz was 3 months pregnant at this stage, and we'd been planning our wedding, and you know, everything was going fantastic before my accident. But then on that day of our first anniversary, she was told, if he doesn't wake up today, he'll never wake up. So can you imagine what Liz went through at that stage? I mean, she'd been through a hell of a lot up till that point with my accident and being in intensive care, but
Yeah.
how would you cope with, well, your hope being shattered, or, you know, but she was just devastated, obviously, by that news. And what brought me out of my coma, I think, was the fact that even in my coma, I could some sort of sense her devastation and, you know, what she was going through. And I managed to struggle around to come out of the coma. But the main thing was I wanted to give her hope. You know, I thought, I've got to come out of this so that she can see that I'm going to live. I didn't know what she'd been told at that stage, but she was just, somehow her devastation got to me in my coma, and I wanted to give her hope, which is, you know, what we're talking about. Is hope is,
Yeah.
it's all you've got to cling on to is hope. So I just thought, I've got to give her something to cling on to. So that's how I came round, and that was a sign that I was still in there. And it all took a while. I think, well, I did, in a way, come out of the coma then, but for me, I can remember it happening, and when it happened, I thought there was a corpse in bed with me. I could feel this arm and a leg lying next to me, and I thought, what's all that about? You know, why did they put a body in the bed with me?
Yeah.
And I had this I must have had something going on in my head, because I actually had this reasoning, thinking maybe there's some theory that if you put a dead body in bed with someone who's alive, you'll bring it back to life. I thought that's a strange sort of idea. I don't know how I managed to think that one through in my coma or whatever, but
Wow.
but of course there wasn't a dead body in with me. It was me. It was this
Yeah.
this arm and this leg, and I was so badly paralyzed at that stage that it just felt like a body next to me.
Wow.
But yeah, I mean, Liz, that was me, but Liz is the one that really is the hero of the story, I suppose, in terms of how she went through that devastation. I mean, I was in a coma. I didn't really know what was going on, but she was living through it and having to deal with that kind of seemingly impossible situation. But by coming round to some extent, I was able to give her some hope. And so I suppose that goes back to your original question is, how do you cope with things emotionally? Well, you wouldn't get much more emotionally challenges than what Liz was going through at that point in time. It was hope, the hope I gave her when I came round. I was sort of showing some signs of moving and gave her some hope. So that's a long way of saying, how do you cope with the emotional impact? And
as you were talking there, I actually remembered so many people to whom also I was speaking about similar subject. And it's quite interesting how it might be not verbalized in the same way, have hope, but all people who went through some tragedies, some disasters, some events which completely transformed their lives and bodies and mindset, all of them are saying very similar thing. What you said just now is a hope. Some people refer to have a vision. Some people say have a goal in front of you. And I quite like that, because it's like anything in life. When you have your vision, called vision board, occasion vision door, when you have that goal in front of you, then you want to go towards something. And when you have nothing in front of you, you just go nowhere. It's like being in a forest, dark forest. And if you don't have any light anywhere, you're not going to go anywhere. You got to have a direction. So I really like what you mentioned there. And it's a beautiful word, hope. I do like that. I think it's very romantic. But if you go back and when you were in coma for those 2 weeks, I know this question will be quite tricky to answer, but I really wonder, because you know what you went through. You had to learn how to walk again with your child. You had to learn how to work again after the injury. All the financial situation and a wife and young child, everything got together like a massive just jump, right?
Yeah.
Knowing what you went through, do you think if you would have chance to come out of coma, you would still come out? Or have you ever had a thought like, I wish I would die. I wish they would just switch off machine. I wish they would just stop my life. I know it's quite tricky, and if you don't want to answer, it's fine. Obviously, all these questions are live, and it's up to you.
Yeah, no, I've never felt that. I mean, I've got too much to live for. As you say, I learned to walk with Jack, which is probably not many people can say they learned to walk with their son.
No.
So for me, I mean, I've got 3 other children, and Liz, and for me, they've been through so much. They nearly lost me.
Wow.
So even if I ever thought, why should I carry on, then it's for them. It will always be for them, and I put them through so much agony already that's what drives me on, really, is to do it for them. And whatever I do is for them, to show, to let them know that I'm back and I'm fully functional. I'm fully back. So that's what's driven me on, really. So yeah, never ever wanted to give up.
Oh, which is really sweet. I like that. I like that. But when you say you do it for Liz and for children, it's not actually true because you also do it for your charity. Because I know you're setting up your charity. Do you want to tell us more about that? Because it is about supporting others.
Yes, well, it's called habit, and it's got the word hope. Hope is at the start. Hope underpins everything. And so habit stands for hope after brain injury trust. So it's showing people, giving people hope.
Yeah,
So the main purpose of it is to tell our story.
right.
So to go out and tell other people with brain injury, this is what you can do. This is what's possible. So don't lose hope. There's always things. There's life after brain injury, and
Yes.
that's the purpose of habit, is to give people that hope. And that, we talk about hope already a lot. But, it's be able to give people hope that is, the most rewarding thing I could do. Because I know what we were going through without hope in some stages, and I want to be able to give people hope.
I love that. What I will do, because I've got the link to your charity organization, I will share the details below these videos on YouTube and also Facebook. So if somebody knows some other people who actually are suffering from brain injury, so you can maybe share it with them and maybe they get inspired. What can be better than actually helping many more people, inspire them, motivate them, and also educate them? Because to be honest, it's very easy to say, like when you are healthy, that there are troubles in life. But for people who suffered from some sort of shape of type of injury and now they're not body able, it's a totally new journey. And actually, I spoke today to my client, and she's a dance teacher. She's an amazing girl, very young, very ambitious, and she has done really well for herself. And she's now started training people who are having missing limbs to dance. And she said her biggest revelation was, Olga, I didn't realize how much we stopped appreciating that we have two legs and two arms. And I thought to myself, yes, you're so right. She says, because when she's showing moves to the other lady, and right now they do it over the Zoom, when she's showing some moves what to do, she says, I need to really double check with myself because she hasn't got one leg. And I have to be mindful of that. She can't keep the balance. And it's remarkable how many people who had some injuries and either have missing body parts or they can't see, they can't hear, or whatever else happened to them. Like Nick Wojciech, he was born with no limbs at all. And look at his inspiring story. Look at you had brain injury, and look at your inspiring story. So when people think I'm facing right now a disaster because I don't have a job, I always say, wake up. Knock yourself on the head and wake up, because not having money is not end of the world. Not having a job is not end of the world. Partners leaving you is not end of the world. But when you are injured, when you have a trauma, that's quite challenging. It is life-changing. Life-changing every time. So I love that. So what's your plan, Jason, going forward? Because right now I know you are doing the workshops, you also do speaking, and you setting up the charity. So what is your plan forward? Do you have something big happening very soon, any more marathons or anything else?
Yeah, well, to go back to the charity, that's going to be, over the next month or two, maybe, that's not going to carry on for a long time, but over the next month or two, I need to actually set it up as a legal entity, or, actually do all the paperwork to set up a trust. And there's some cost involved in that. So I'm doing some crowdfunding on Just Giving at the moment to just raise a bit of money to get the whole thing off the ground. So there's a Just Giving page for that. If anyone's interested in helping me to do that. But then longer term, after it's set up and running, then the idea is that it will be partly funded by me getting paid to do workshops and speaking, and then money from that will go into the trust. So, to pay for other expenses or whatever else that's needed. But also, actually, the other idea I've got for Habit to give people hope is to give sort of small grants for people who want to do some physical challenges. Like a lot of my hope or my progression came from physical challenges. So first of all, it was learning to walk. I mean, you just said earlier that most people take walking for granted.
Mm-hmm.
But if you've been told you'll never walk, then you realise how great, how blessed we are to be able to walk.
Yeah.
But many people wouldn't think that. So walking, riding a bike, learning to swim, doing a triathlon. I put it all together to do a triathlon. And then once I'd done the triathlon, marathon was the next step.
Mm.
But what I want to do is to be able to give some funds to people who want to take on physically. So I know a lot of mine was to do physical challenges, and I worked. I set new goals. Walk with Jack, learn to swim, learn to ride a bike, do a triathlon. So the first goal was to walk with Jack. The next goal was to do a triathlon. And then the next goal after that was the marathon. So setting new physically challenging goals. And I want to be able to facilitate other people to do that through Habit. So give people hope that they can achieve things like I did. So that's the purpose of Habit. I can't remember now what the question was you asked me before that. But,
the next big goal. I like it to actually give grants to people who want to do physical challenges. I really like it. But we actually have a comment here from Vinit and Pat. Thank you so much for coming back. He's actually one of the regular visitors here with us. Very nice to hear about hope. It's very very important, I guess, in these times of COVID pandemic. Exactly. Yes, exactly. That's very, very important. So thank you so much for this beautiful comment, Vinit. But you see, James, I really love your next step. It's helping those who want to do some physical challenges and give them some grants. It's amazing. Well, I think what we should do is just all of us just to support you through crowdfunding so actually you can take off your charity off the ground and help many more people who really and seriously need that help, rather just, those who are sitting on sofa and complaining about something. Life is not fair. So let's help those people who are facing real challenges, physical, emotional, body-wise, or any others. I love that. But Jason, if people want to get in touch with you, of course, I'm going to share all the links and details, but what would be the best way to get in touch with you?
Well, if they want to get in touch with me directly, a personal correspondence, if you want communication, it's just my email, which is just jasonlemasurier.com. Sorry, that's my website. jasonlemasurier.com is my website, but jasonlemasurier@gmail.com is my email address. I must say my website is not brilliant at the moment, but jasonlemasurier.com is my website. But also observationalmethod.com is what I was talking about before in terms of what brings it all together. So so those are two websites, and then there's also I'm on LinkedIn and Facebook and Twitter. So if people want to contact me that way, then they're all ways of communicating with me.
Wonderful. Well, so everybody who is watching us right now, I must thank you for tuning in, coming back. Those who watched us just some time ago when me and Jason were facing true crisis live, when actually we could not unfortunately connect with Jason. We either could just see him or not to see him and not hear him. But we managed really well. We had Jason on the phone next to the computer, and then we were having this live session with Jason being on the phone. So today we actually had Jason live, and I'm so grateful, Jason, for your time, being with us and sharing your amazing tips about how to thrive in a crisis and how to overcome uncertainty. Because right now we have uncertain time because of lockdown. We have uncertain time because what's happening in not only America anymore, but in the entire world about all these movements. So I think right now, like never before, is the best time to learn how to overcome that uncertainty, to learn how to thrive. So I'm so grateful you were with us today, and I'm so thankful to all people who joined us today. It was a pleasure having you. Thank you, Jason.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure to be and help to crystallize some of my thoughts, my thinking, and be able to tell people about those thoughts. And very happy to correspond and hear to people again after this.
That's wonderful. And I'm sure if somebody needs some help, and I'm sure they can email it to you, and I'm sure you'll get back in touch with them to help them more.
Sure.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, everybody. Wherever you do, have an absolutely amazing day, and see you soon.